Hey, what's up guys? It's Keith Kalfas from I Am Ability. In this video, we're going to be interviewing Coach Rob from EgoEdge.com, and he's an awesome guest. He's a full wealth of information and a personal friend of mine. But I just have a quick disclaimer. The underlying principle for all of Rob's work is what he calls equanimity. This means that his work is guided by the doctrine that reciprocals balance each other and create wholeness. Much like night and day, up and down, left and right, men and women, masculinity and femininity, etc. So what this means is that he does not hold one political position as being superior to another, just that they are meant to complement the process of achieving equanimity, not to divide and escalate division, but to encourage relative principles like synergy, synchronicity, and harmony. As with all of his work, he is dedicated to offering insights from his research, education, and experiences into what he sees as obstacles to the things that his coaching clients and people in his life are suffering from a lack of awareness about. He welcomes all opinions and comments. So I'm just straight up going freestyle on this. Just got some lunch with Mr. Coach Rob, and he was asking me some questions about the Pledge of Allegiance. And did you ever say the Pledge of Allegiance in school? I know that you did. And he was bringing up some very interesting points about it. And this has to do with everything. And the more I hang out with this guy, is the more I start to become aware and question everything I grew up learning. Can you talk more about that as I put you on the spot?
Sure. Well, most of us have said the Pledge of Allegiance, or at least have heard it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
Republic for which it stands.
Right. And so how come when you turn on the TV, they're talking about a democracy? That's a question that seems pretty simple and obvious, that, they're using the word republic to talk about pledging an allegiance to something, but they don't talk about that form of government on TV or in the schools, or the military doesn't talk about it openly. So that's a point of curiosity for me. I want to ask questions like, well, when did that happen, or why did it happen, and who made it happen, and what are the differences, and how do those differences affect me? And just like a line of reasoning just starts to develop for me based on that one curiosity. So that's why I had brought it up to you, to see what your thoughts were on that.
I like how you're really just simplifying and dumbing this down. If you heard the stuff he was telling me at lunch, I'm like, mind-blowing stuff that I'm like, well, how can we make a video about this and just strike some questions?
Sure. Well, as soon as you open up this type of conversation, there's a lot of sensationalism, like conspiracy theories and misinformation, disinformation.
Turn this way a little.
There's more light on the subject. So there's confusion. People get defensive because it's just so overwhelming. And how do you really discover what is truthful about those questions, that I just brought up? So as a coach of interior space for the last 20 years, I've worked really hard at trying to discern what is true about the interior space, what is true about the difference between ego and pure awareness, right? Or pure self-expression, as opposed to a self-expression that gets squeezed through an ego, a paradigm, a set of filters, beliefs, values, and ideals. And so I think I've figured that out pretty well. And, I've been resistant to the external space. And once I got to a point where it's like, okay, I have to stop resisting the external space, because I could see how much distress or suffering, the confusion in this external space, was showing up to the coaching process of the internal space. Mm-hmm. So I thought, oh my gosh, I really am going to have to make some sacrifices and use my awareness to help guide me through what is true about the external space, the public, so to speak, the world at large, right? And so that's when I came across somebody that I believed had credibility and knew what was going on, because they won a Supreme Court case. So they took their case all the way to the Supreme Court and won against Bill Clinton's administration. So if you know anything about that, it was very difficult to defeat Bill Clinton's administration in any kind of lawsuit. But so when he won, I started to look at what it was that he was doing. And that was Sheriff Richard Mack. He won a gun case.
I watched a bunch of videos of that guy's awesome.
But he didn't go to the Supreme Court on Second Amendment rights. He went to the Supreme Court on 10th Amendment rights, which are state rights. And in the victory, the Supreme Court Justice said that the states, the several states of the Union, are not subject to federal direction. So that just means they don't have to listen to the feds. But who are the several states, and what are the states that aren't several in a union? That opens up another line of reasoning that we're not going to get into today. But the point is that Sheriff Richard Mack won, and he won on constitutional principles. And so I wanted to look into that, because I was raised saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the Republic, and when I was in school, I went to private school, and I learned about separation of powers and the Congress and the judicial and the executive branches. And I knew that writing a bunch of executive orders, like legislating from the presidential office, is not what I was taught as a Republican form of government guaranteed by the Constitution. So I joined Sheriff Richard Mack's organization and got to learn from him about the law, what is lawful and what is legal. So the legal system, attorneys, democracy, is different than what is lawful under the Constitution. So that's the nature of the question about what is this Pledge of Allegiance talking to the Republic, and then I turn on the TV and all they're talking about is a democracy. So that was a question that was important for me, because I could tell that a lot of my clients were showing up with suffering related to this confusion, believing one thing but experiencing another. You know, it's like cognitive dissonance, right? It hurts the brain and you can't reconcile it, because you feel it, it's an energetic bind, but you don't understand it.
That you're getting fleeced by the system.
Well, the sad part is it's voluntary. And that's probably a course to demonstrate how that occurs. But we all step up and volunteer for it, just because we don't know any better, and we are actually encouraged to do it. But we're not obligated to do it. But once we start, then we become obligated to performance. And yeah, so I'm sure all of us have felt that our private property has been taken from us unfairly, whether it's through victimless crimes, right, or aggressive penalties and fines, and just things that you can feel don't seem like America. They seem like somebody wanting to profit off you. So, but the more you start to get specific this early in this kind of a conversation, the more it triggers those things we talked about in the beginning. Defensiveness, overwhelming.
Yep.
Don't know how, is this a conspiracy theory? Are you out of your mind? Are you one of them?
Yeah, because as soon as a lot of people start talking about something that it reminds them of some way something happened to them or they know, and then they get angry, and then you can't even have the conversation because it triggers all these landmines.
Or the last 25 people that brought this stuff up were angry or hostile, right? Or belligerent, or so you're turned off by the subject matter, not because you're evaluating the truth in it, but because the way people behave around it. And yeah, so that makes it difficult to feel the resonance inside of you.
We
Feel
should
like-
do. I'm sorry. I cut
That's
you.
okay. No.
We should do a conference call if you are interested in this type of topic and you want to learn more. If any of this is, am I getting clear here?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm willing to talk. I just, due to the nature of the subject matter, it's not really public information. It's private information, and it's not public information for a lot of reasons, but probably one of the simplest ones is because of the reaction it causes. Gets people agitated. And I'm not here to agitate people. I'm not here to say anybody's wrong. I'm just here to share what I think is important to consider. And that's really all it is. I think we all have an inherent right to consider these things, but because the public has grown so large, the democracy has grown so large, it seems like there's only one choice, one thing. So, you know, I've already said things you don't see on the news, and so people are right to assume that if they don't see their civic leaders talking about it, that it must not be true. I mean, I don't begrudge anybody for holding that perspective. I was there until I realized I had to do what I did on the internal space to do it on the external space, so I could balance those in harmony and in equanimity, right? Have equilibrium both inside of my body, my consciousness, and outside in my environment, so that they could align.
So he was working out and lifting weights and practicing swinging a sword and a shield.
And offering the flower at the right moments too. You got to have the masculine and feminine to be healed, to be fully self-expressed.
And then you got all that together, and now you can go out.
Right. So now when I look at, you know, these debates between the left and the right, liberals and conservatives, and leftists and rightists, and, you know, Trump versus Hillary Clinton, and all this division, right? That's a division, and that's not wholeness. See, because they're clinging to a part of all that is, trying to say this is, you know, the correct all that is. But it's not, it's part of it. So you have a partiality. That's why judges are impartial. They're supposed to be. And they are in a certain jurisdiction. But, you know, even when clients are coming just for anxiety, or they're coming to quit smoking, or, you know, whatever, their internal space issues, they have a partiality. You know, and in our little video series, we talk about, you know, becoming polarized, becoming, you know, allowing the psychology or the thought worlds to block certain inconvenient truths or uncomfortable truths. That doesn't mean that's all there is. It means that you're not accepting all that is yet. So how can you find peace? Because you're always going to be resistant to part of what makes it equalized, peaceful. So that's why it was so important for me to
That's why it's not calm water, because you're polarized on this storm, or you're
Right.
polarized on something. So it can't be calm water, and that's done by design, is it, or is this a byproduct happening because we feel?
It's co-created by design and by voluntary participation.
Oh. Let me know in the comments below if this type of conversation stimulates your brain, and let me know if you have anything to add to it, because whether we set one up now or you want to go off the comments,
I'll let you manage all that.
We'll do a conference
I
call.
want to help people get out of suffering and to find their way to, you know, fulfillment, to be fully self-expressed, to have an experience that is amazing. Like I said earlier, it's a miracle that anything is happening at all. And we lose track of that quick. It's just like, what is one thing that absolutely has to be true today for you to be happy? In fact, I would encourage you to answer that question for yourself and see what you get, right, just off the cuff. And then if we have a call, maybe we'll talk about that and I'll tell you what that answer is for me.
That's good stuff. All right, let us know. Hanging out with Coach Rob right now. Just got some lunch, and let me know in the comments, and we will follow up with this and talk again soon. If you go back and rewind through the videos, you'll see some interviews with him and more topics, but not specifically this. There's the one where you talked about the oligarchy, and that was a really cool video. I'll put the link in that description below to this, and that'll kind of draw some light on what we're talking about. Cool?
Sure. Thanks, Keith, for having me.
All right,
Appreciate
over
it.
and out.
Yep.